You know how many horror games have a sewer level? And you know how they are very rarely good? Well, a developer by the name of Kira thought, let's make a whole goddamn game about sewer levels, and let's make it good. Welcome to Lost in Vivo. The game opens with the frustratingly relatable scenario of your service dog being pennywised directly into a sewer drain, but rather than doing the sensible thing by calling it quits and buying a new dog at the dog store, we decide to follow him in. But wait! I am being dishonest. This is not how I started the game. I started it, completely unwittingly, at midnight, which unlocks a special mode called Midnight, which is a little different to the standard game, because rather than slinking around a sewer looking for your dog, you're marauding through some kind of chalice dungeon while collecting silver treasures.
Two of you are walking around in the sewers naked, looking for rings and coins?
You feel it with your feet. It's almost like clamming.
I don't really know why, but you get a cool sword, so I'm all good with it. Anyway, back to the main game. So you may notice, it's a bit claustrophobic. It's not just because we're in a tunnel either. The field of view, by default, is 45. For reference, the standard FOV for console FPS games is about 60 to 75, and on PC it can really go anywhere from 60 to 120, though 90 is the standard, and regular human vision is just under 180 degrees. Lost in Vivo allows you to see just over 1/5 of what you naturally see. I've not seen too many games utilize the more technical aspects of games, like the field of view, to such extreme lengths, and while I do genuinely enjoy it here, after about 30 minutes I kinda stopped noticing it. I'm not saying that it's no longer a good effect, just that I was immersed enough to no longer pay attention to those non-diegetic factors, which is a complicated way of saying FOV good. And on the topic of good, how good is the horror? Well, it's pretty fucking good. Claustrophobia doesn't bother me much, but this does, as does that, and this, and oh, holy fuck! The monster design is pretty spectacular. A lot of horror games, especially those inspired by Silent Hill, tend not to innovate too much in terms of enemy design, but holy hell. Take a look at these boys. This big crawly boy is certainly the most frightening, and the train lad is just mwah. But my favorite has to be this creepy dog creep. Just look at him. A perfect mix of organic body horror, mechanical horror, and good old-fashioned mimicry horror all rolled into one unspeakably evil imposter homunculus. And oh my god, just look at the way it moves. It's just... so good. But this ain't no cowardly ass snowflake protagonist that you get in the likes of Amnesia and Outlast. We actually get to defend ourselves here, so how is the combat? Well, it's there. Back to the horror! There are kinds of scares in this game that I haven't really encountered before. For example, this one. Try whistling. I'm unbelievably disappointed. Oh. Okay, I take back what I just said. No, I'm very satisfied with the outcome of that. And let me tell you, this shit is masterfully crafted. The audio design, the pacing, the interactivity, the goddamn pacing, the implication, the fact that it's easily missed, and most importantly, the pacing, lead this to be one of the most haunting moments I've ever had in a game. And believe me, this is hardly the only one. I'd show you more, but frankly, I don't want to spoil them. I almost missed the whistle event too, so God knows how many other hidden spooky times are just waiting to be found. And on a related note, it's refreshing to see a game that doesn't shove its scares down your throat all the time too. Yeah, there are some jump scares, but not too many, and because of that, it avoids the haunted house on rails feeling that many indie horror games do have. For example, one of the game's most iconic and frightening enemies is this guy. And I almost completely missed him. It may be pretty obvious to some of you, but for those who aren't as scholarly and horrorly, this game is heavily inspired by Silent Hill, from the deep psychoanalytical enemy design, to the color palette, to the nightmare motifs, the rustiness, the claustrophobia, and so on. It's very evocative of Silent Hill. Not that Silent Hill invented these ideas, but it certainly popularized them in gaming. But the reason I left it this late in the video to acknowledge this is because, well, the game forms its own identity. Other games with clear inspirations cling on to the IP they're based on, but not Lost in Vivo. It takes those elements and uses them as a way to make something original, and honestly, you could replace most of these and the game wouldn't change too much. Compare that to the likes of Deathbloom, which is quite reliant on its inspiration. My only real criticism of the game is the story. That is to say, I have no clue what's happening. There's a dog and a sewer and a shoggoth and a lab and a hotel and a kennel and an elevator and a hell, and the point is, it's confusing. And I know some of you will say, well, actually, it's meant to be confusing, and yeah, I know. I just don't like that too much. I prefer my abstractions to be in the formatting and delivery rather than the actual narrative. I usually see the story, which includes the setting and characters, to be the constant while everything else can change. And this game takes the opposite approach, where the gameplay is the constant and everything else is fairly inconsistent. But really that comes down to personal preference. And the way this game approaches it allows for a ton of speculation and analysis, which I will leave to the smarter people, so it's definitely not objectively bad, it's just a matter of taste. Now, some of you may be put off by the level design because it is quite samey. Again, it's basically one large sewer level, but then again, Penumbra Overture and Black Plague did a very similar thing. In those games you were basically in one location, which was mine and SCP Laboratory, but they both made slight changes every so often to keep things fresh? Is that the right word? No, that's almost certainly not the right word, but you get the point. There's enough variety in the sameness to stop the sameness from becoming samey. Why do you guys let me speak? Overall, I feel like this game is a love letter to horror. Kira demonstrates such a great understanding of horror, and this whole game is a real treat for horror fans. However, I did learn something playing this game. It's not really my kind of horror. Don't get me wrong, I loved this game and I fully understand if you revere this, but there are different types of horror and this kind simply doesn't do much for me. The psychological approach doesn't quite scare me like it used to, and this game did make me realize that. Fuck, even my niche horror tastes are niche. That doesn't take away from what this game achieves though, which is a whole lot. And like I mentioned earlier, it's not like the game doesn't scare me, it most certainly fucking does. But a few years ago I wouldn't have been able to finish it. Now I can. And that's the difference. Anyway, closing statement. It good. This definitely achieves a level of subtlety and artistry that many other games struggle to reach, and because of that, it's going into the best category. Thanks so much for watching. Follow me on Twitter at PainticusYT, on Twitch at twitch.tv/Painticus, and join the Discord for some wonderfully cursed exchanges. Also, if you want to see my full playthrough of Lost in Vivo, check out the Painticus archive channel, linked in the description, where you can see me just kind of stumble through some sewers for a couple hours. It's really not worth watching. Anyway, see you next time. Bye-bye.
Yeah, that brings up another issue. What are you two doing in the sewer?
We always go in the
Hang on
sewer.
the sewer.